but then I did learn by designing quite a few. So, yep, so I think the recording started, so I'll just do that. Yep, so I better share the right screen. There we are. Okay, so there are two ways of starting. You can either use the kitchen cabinets from the library and then use the plan of those cabinets or the planning of those cabinets to give you the kitchen layout that you're after. But that really only works if you want a fairly conventional type of kitchen. So it sounds like you want something that's a bit more unusual and also maybe quite compact. So I wouldn't start it that way. I'm just going to show you very quickly in case those of you who do have more of a standard layout want to try this. You would just go to Place Component and then Load Family and go to the Casework folder and then Base Cabinets. And then you can see here we've got all these standard cabinet sizes. But if you want a curving kitchen and one that's fairly compact, these really won't work all that well for that. Or maybe we'll just bring in one so you can see what I mean. So if I place this cabinet, this is a fairly narrow one, but there it was as a wider version of it over in the properties panel, you can see there. So if I lay these cabinets out, and this is the way in reality kitchens are usually built these days, by having the cabinets as the base, and then you make a custom sized bench to go over the top of those cabinets, and that essentially will give you your kitchen. So you can start with this one with the cabinets. But you can see, of course, they only work for kitchens that are in nice straight lines, and also kitchens that are a fairly standard sort of size. So let's say I wanted a kitchen that needed to either follow this curve or maybe fit inside the curve. And before you go too far with that, trying to work out your own, I might just show you something that helped me a lot in understanding a lot of the different options for kitchens. And that was a book by a very famous designer, Ernst Conran. And unfortunately, the really good book he did on kitchens in the 70s isn't available anymore. But they've done a reprinted version, which is nowhere near as good. But you'll still find a lot of the images from that earlier book if you just search online. And he didn't design all of these kitchens, but he was really good at going out and finding lots of interesting designs and just photographing them. So you can see here, he's got, if you're interested in compact kitchens, this is again one from the 70s, when there was a lot of, I think, really interesting new design ideas coming through, and they hadn't gone down the horrible pathway that happened afterwards, where they started making things a bit maybe not as attractive and a bit more theoretically based and basically not as good. So if you're interested in that approach to design, he might give you some, or the things that he sourced might give you some really good ideas. So that's a really good example of a compact kitchen, but you're not going to be able to get something like that with the standard components out of Revit. So we'll see if we can find something else just to give you some other ideas. If you can find the old book, it's often in a lot of secondhand bookshops and other bookshops like that. It's a great resource. But again, you can just search for other kitchen designs, compact kitchen designs or something like that, and again, you might get lots of ideas. So then you'll realize that you can't, again, just rely on the families that come from Revit, and you also wouldn't be able to just download a pre-made kitchen and scale it and expect it to work in your design. So the way you should be setting up those things really is to design them. So you've got to know what you're trying to design in the first place, and often that is a matter of just doing some drawing before you even get into Revit. So you want to have a clear idea about what you're trying to make. And then as you start to set that out in Revit, don't try to put in all of the detail from the outset. just go to use model in place and then keep it simple. So start with, always for kitchens, use casework. And then, so I'll call it, let's say island kitchen. And start with the overall form, and then you can gradually keep refining that. So let's say I wanted something like that island kitchen, but I wanted to make it more, let's say with some more curves. So I go to make an extrusion and then draw the shape that I want. So I might, again, use a curve, but it doesn't have to use this, but just as an example. So I could draw a curved shape for my bench, or you can also still have some straight lines maybe. So maybe I want something like this, and then you can experiment, but it's, again, going to be a lot easier if you've taken the time to do some hand drawing to work out what you're trying to design. But then you have to remember there are standard sizes that apply to all kitchens. Not if you listen to the people who think they're special. There are some special people, usually men, I've noticed, who do a bit of cooking and think that that makes them very special. A lot of clients I've had, it's amazing. They think that that only some men do cooking, whereas I know a lot of men who cook and don't think of anything that it's anything special. But those few that I've noticed who thought they were, doing a really special thing, also happen to be fairly tall, and thought that the kitchen bench should be set to suit them, basically. So it should be made higher just for them, which is ridiculous. Personally, I think is a really stupid attitude, but that's what a few clients I've had have told me, that they want their kitchen bench brought up to, let's say, 950, or I had even one who wanted it a metre, which causes all sorts of problems, because when they go to sell the property, of course, most people don't want an extra high bench, and it's quite hard to reduce the size. And then the other problem is that appliances are all made for the standard kitchen bench height. So it means you have to go and either get the appliances customized or do a lot of work to make it fit with a different bench height. So just my recommendation, always try to stick with that standard bench height, which I'm sure you all know is 900. So I'm going to make the extrusion start 0. So I'm not even worrying about the kickboard. So I'll click tick to finish, and I've got a very simple extrusion, but that would be for my kitchen bench and the cupboard. So I'll go and finish this just so we can see with a camera view how that looks. Okay, so that would be enough to start planning out the kitchen in that area. And then to go and add more detail, we can go back and edit that and keep adding more extrusions. So we might have a maybe a little side table that comes off this or something. So again, another extrusion. And so that may be lower. So we'd make that maybe 600. Sorry, 700 for like a dining table sort of height. And then again, you can draw another little extrusion off to the side. Okay, so there's another one, and then back into the plan. So let's say we want some overhead cupboards now. So again, they have a standard height. So you always want to stick with these standard sizes. Even for compact kitchens, you still use the standard heights. So the standard height for an overhead cupboard is 1500 to 2100 if it's a 600 high cupboard. Okay, so I might just again draw I'll draw a rectangle to start with, and then maybe might look at rounding that off on one side just to tie it in with the plan that I've got for the bench. Okay, so again, back into the 3D view, you can see there's my overhead cupboard. Maybe I could bring that up if it needs to hang from the ceiling. So that's probably too small for a kitchen, but then when you go to plan it out, you can resolve those things. So just remember, with kitchens, you tend to have 3 primary appliances, and those are the stove, the sink, and the fridge. The stove and the oven thought of as one appliance. So you can start putting those things in. So back to component, load family, and you have in the default library, you'll always have those standard fixtures and fittings. If we go to specialty equipment, you find a lot of it there. So in domestic, we have stoves. So if you want a full stove and oven combined, you've got those. There should also be a hot plate. There we are. So for a compact kitchen, maybe a 2-burner hot plate is enough. So you put that in, work out where you can fit that. And if it's a very compact kitchen, then that's probably enough. So try and get a sink in as well. So they're in a different place. They're in plumbing fixtures. So under plumbing, architectural fixtures, sinks. Here we go. So they're all very big sinks, but maybe a single bowl sink for a compact kitchen is enough. So we can fit that in somewhere, hopefully. Okay, so that may just work, because you could say that there's an under counter, or a bar fridge there, if we could squeeze that in somewhere. And then you've got a bit of bench space. You'd have to get an oven in somewhere, but it could be maybe an overhead oven, or you could fit that in on a wall somewhere to the side, or just somewhere else. So that's the way you do a small kitchen. But again, the secret is not to go too far with the detail, and not to try and use pre-made cabinets and things like that. Just model in block forms using extrusions. And for your final design presentation, that may be enough, even, because again, you're doing concept level presentations. You're not doing construction drawings. So that can also make it a lot easier to design. Yeah, exactly. Extrusion, model in place. That's the key to it. Yep, exactly. So I might stop that recording there. Yeah, but hopefully I'll give you